Welcome to another mailbag session. Remember, these are questions and comments you guys leave on the channel. But before we get going on this session, remember, normal parish notices apply. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, why not? Hit the subscribe icon. If you want to be notified when new content hits the channel, it's the bell icon's the one you need. If you like the contents of this video, give it a thumbs up. Consider becoming a member of the TMTG community. It's always a big mouthful. The address is down the bottom, as are the Facebook and Instagram tags. Go tag me over there. But now back to the video. Next one comes from Tony Jackson. In response to a rant I did about cocking up a video, Windows 10 warnings, plug outs, eBay, and something called Director-S. Which was May 2020. And Tony writes, thanks for the info on the Roland Director-S. As I said before, there is practically no info out there about this other than it's a sequencer for the Roland S-series samplers. And there were various versions of Director-S, okay, so for various different samplers. Oh, and the utility list for the S330 is very, very, very important. As without it, you can't do any sampling, like me right now. I found one on eBay. Well, Tony, if you need another one, go to my eBay page. I have got replacement media for the S330 up on there. So if this doesn't work out, that's where you can get it, because mine all work. And I've got a story which I'll be telling on the rant this week about one of my recent media replacements I did with somebody and what happened. Anyway, I totally agree. There is absolutely no information on the internet about the director stuff. I don't know why, but that's really how it is. And I've got to be honest, and there's not a lot of, the S330 seems to be the lost sampler anyway. It's the one that's between the S50 and the S550. Although the S50 and the S550 were meant to be the same sampler, they really are not the same sampler. They are completely different beasts. And honestly, you have a different disc format as well between the two of them. So that tells you how much they are the same beast. They're not, really are not. But I found it a really handy little unit. I've been playing with it quite a lot. The only thing that I'm completely confused about on the S330 is why did they put phono outputs on it rather than 1/4-inch jacks? I sort of kind of get the impression this was not aimed at the studio musician. It was aimed at something like a DJ with a mixing console. So typically a DJ mixing console, unlike this mixing console where you've got predominantly 1/4-inch jacks into it. A DJ mixing console, if you flip it on the other side, will typically have phono jacks, which is sort of kind of these things. And I think that was kind of the market it was aimed at, given the fact it's covered in phono jacks. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. So that's very little info on the S330. Very little info on the Director-S as well. I found that to be, in fact, I picked up my copy. I think I was really lucky to get hold of my copy. I got it from a guy in Italy, who really didn't really understand what it was he was selling. So that was quite good. But the reality is I really haven't had the time to sort of load it up and put because you have to plug a little device into the mouse socket, which is effectively like a licensed dongle for it. So you can't actually use it if you've got the disc. You actually have to have the dongle as well. So sorry guys, anybody who sort of asked me for a disc, forget it. It ain't going to work. Next one from Dan Brown. I assume you're not the author, Dan Brown. Mind you, I did enjoy the Da Vinci Code. In response to the FBO1 demo of Soundbank 1 I did on January 2016. And Dan writes, nice keyboard stands and rack gear, like the covers too. And thank you. Funny enough, I get asked a lot about the keyboard stands, not the ones that are here, but the keyboard stands that were in the studio and the covers that I use. All I can say about the keyboard stands is what I wanted is, I've seen the A stands and I've used the A stands in the past, and my issue with the A stands is they kind of have to come away from the wall, and I didn't have an awful lot of space. And I found that the A stands, where when I was putting something like this thing on the A stands, I found that they weren't particularly steady. They were great if you were going to have a keyboard and you were going to play the keyboard via MIDI, and you were just going to interact with the buttons and what have you on the keyboard. But they weren't great if you wanted to play them. And what I wanted is I wanted something I could play, which was the reason why I ended up with the stands as they were, which are from Gibraltar. I will put a link to all the equipment that you need to buy from Thomann, which is pretty much the only place you can get it all. You can get it from other places in the UK, but if you want to buy all of it, you kind of need to buy it from Thomann in Germany, which is what I've done. And all I will say about that is it will take my weight, and I'm 15 stone. Well, actually, I'm less than 15 stone now, but I was 15 stone. And when I was sort of doing effectively chin-ups, or push-ups, whatever you want to call them, on it, it would take my weight quite merrily. So it definitely takes the weight of a big 88 master keyboard. In fact, it'll take the weight of two big 88 master keyboards because of the way it's designed, and a third keyboard on the top. So that was the first thing. So that's what I wanted, something that would take the weight of a good master keyboard. And I've got several of them, of these particular racks now, where in the studio I used to have 3 master keyboards. I used to have one there, and one there. And the one that was there was always off camera to you. When I was shot in the video, you only used to see the 2 that were just kind of one there and one there, because the camera would be pretty much there. But what I will say about them is, when they have been on stage, and after you set them up and you give them a quick wipe over with like window lean or something like that, they really pick up the stage lighting, and they shine in all directions, and they look the dog's doodahs on stage. The only thing I'd say about it is they're not cheap. It's the only thing I'd say is they're not cheap, but they are the most resilient, sturdy stands I've ever owned. I mean, I've got just a Z frame here, and another. I've got a keyboard in front of me, which is off camera. Neither of these are as sturdy as the stands that I had in the studio. Unfortunately, I've packed them all down now. They're all in storage. So that was the first thing. The second thing was the padded covers. So I always put padded covers on my keyboards. I have for every keyboard I buy. If I decide I'm going to keep the keyboard and not sell it on, then I tend to go and buy a padded keyboard. And the reason for that is because I rotate keyboards in and out of the, or I used to rotate the keyboards in and out of the studio and in and out of the front room. Quite often, I'd like to just put a cover on them, and the cover does a couple of things. Number one, it stops them getting dusty, because this one hasn't got a cover. It really should have a cover, but and this just sort of gets wiped down once a week or so. But number one, it keeps the dust off them, so you don't get dust in the mechanisms. And I hate playing dusty keys. I really do. It's one of my pet peeves, playing dusty keys. So that's the first thing. It keeps the dust off. And the second thing is, I buy covers that are 4mm padded, and they're specifically made for each keyboard. So I don't buy generic covers. I use a company called Piano Covers online, and I buy covers that are specific for each keyboard. So they will be made for this keyboard, they will be made for that keyboard. So they fit them exactly. And what they tend to do at Piano Covers online is they fit them with effectively cutouts for all the connections at the back of the keyboard. So that you can leave your MIDI cables and such, and power cables and stuff like that plugged into the keyboard. You don't have to keep unplugging them to put the cover on. And some covers are sort of like are positioned in such a way that they're square, and that they go round the edges and they fit tightly, and therefore you can't leave the keyboard plugged in. But the reason why they're 4mm padded is because if you drop something on a keyboard, if you've got something that's padded there, it absorbs the impact to a degree, And if you're going to take them on the road and you were going to do them on the road, and a friend of mine has done this, he went for 10mm padded options, which are really quite spongy. And as he said, things get dropped. People drop things on keyboards on stage. And he said with the covers on, so what he does is he goes and sets up for his gig, and then he'll put the covers on the keyboards, just so that when people do drop things on keyboards, and the bottom line is, they don't give a damn about your equipment. Okay, people don't give a damn about your equipment. If they drop something on it, they go, "Oh, sorry," and then walk off. And they could have caused hundreds of pounds worth of damage, but it's, "Oh, I'm sorry." I'm sorry, but it doesn't cut the mustard. And the reason why he put these big 10mm padded covers on there was to actually protect the keyboards from those sort of people, because they just don't think about it. They don't think about that they've caused damage. It's like, oh, there'd be more. If you gave them a bill for several £100 to get your keyboard repaired because they damaged it, they wouldn't pay it. I can tell you that now. You'd end up taking a small claims court if you wanted money out of them. Anyway, I will put a list to the keyboard stands on underneath this, and I'll also put a link to the company that make the piano cover, or the covers that I use on my synthesizers. And I highly recommend, if you're going to leave your synthesizer set up, I highly recommend that you go and buy covers. Yes, they're not going to be cheap, but it will protect your keyboard. And the worst thing is, and I don't tend to do it when I'm playing here. I don't tend to have drinks in my hands. My drink's either over there or it's over here. But people put drinks on there because it's a flat surface, and that damages your keyboard as well.